Good evening, Hoggle Schnogs and Snovel Pig and Shiggets. Two things going on simultaneously. One is the restoration of this Suitcase Rhodes, which is here, and the other was the repair of these Leslie 60 cabinets, which are here. So this is a demonstration of my newly constructed black Leslie amplifier. Oops, sorry. That's Marvin Spears. Spearhead Hammond organ repair in South Carolina. All of his organs sound really wonderful. And he built a new black Leslie amp that he showed on the Hammond Technicians Repair forum on Facebook. Anyway, this is not that. This is a comparison between the Don Leslie 60 tone cabinets produced circa 1970s, whenever it was owned by CBS. Evidently, CBS owned Leslie at some point. Man, everybody bought everybody. Fender owned Rhodes for a while and then dumped him, and then Harold Rhodes went on his own, and evidently Don Leslie was owned by CBS for a while, Electro Music, and then it went back maybe to Leslie. But anyway, Don Leslie developed these Leslie 60/70 tone cabinets, which have 10-inch 4-ohm speakers, very similar to the Janus satellite speakers that Harold Rhodes produced, which is the Janus amplifier, which you can't see, but it's down here. Maybe I'll take the camera off in a minute, because this is pretty informative information here. But to make a long story short, I'm restoring this Suitcase Rhodes, and so the preamp has been rebuilt by Avion Studios in Missouri, and they also recapped both of the amplifier boards in the Janus amplifier for this Rhodes, and it's working really well. But I'm using their breakout box to power the preamp at this point. But I replaced the 4 speakers in the bottom section of this, and the preamp's been rebuilt, and I'm using the amplifiers, the Janus amplifiers, so this is a representation of what this restored instrument will sound like whenever I get it put back together. But in the meantime, I have 2 sets of the Leslie 60s that I've used most of my career as amplification for my Rhodes, which is a Stage 73 Mark II 1981, my entire life to gig. And it's only been in the last 2 days that I happened to decide, well, while I'm working on this Janus amp, the juices are flowing for this repair, so I'm going to pull these this main Leslie 60 cabinet out that had been non-functional for a while, and attempt to fix it, and I was able to fix it. So basically it was a double repair. The fuse holder in the Janus amp was defective and needed to be replaced, and the fuse holder in the Leslie 60s was also defective, so it's a similar part that after 40 years they failed. There's a spring in there, so I ordered 2 fuse holders because I think I realized that it was a similar repair. So when I did the Janus first, then I took the Leslie 60 apart and I replaced the fuse holder in it, blah blah blah. There were a couple other issues with the Leslie 60s, but the fuse holder, getting the right fuse in there, I got them to power up, and I had an intermittent all this time, kind of. And also there was an open ground in the preamp box, so that if you're familiar with these Leslie 60s, you know that they will not function without this. This is one of the 2 preamps. This is one of them that has an active preamp board in it. And then the controller that came with the newer set of Leslie 60s that I bought off eBay came with this preamp. And there are 2 different ones that do 2 different things that I discovered. This is the 110750 preamp that's meant to go with Wurlitzer organs. So if you pop the back of it off, which I won't do, there is no preamp circuit in it. There's no little PCB board with a little preamp built onto it. It's just a couple of pots and then the speed control. So it is meant, as I discovered later on, because it works with a Wurlitzer organ, this wouldn't work with the Rhodes. Well, the reason being is because the Rhodes, especially the stage Rhodes, not the Suitcase, has no preamp. It's a passive amplification system, so the signal coming out of the stage Rhodes is really weak. So a hot signal coming out of a Wurlitzer organ is not going to drive the Leslie 60s. So you need this preamp, which really is a preamp, and it's 112670. And if you pop the back off of this, there is a little PC board with a little preamp built into it. So this is what you need for the Rhodes to amplify its really low passive signal. And if you want to use these Leslie 60s with an organ, what I discovered is it doesn't take a preamp out signal. Maybe you would want to take it off of the preamp of your Leslie B-3. It takes a speaker level signal. So like the 147 Leslie amp that takes its signal from a speaker level output. So on an A100 that has built-in speakers, the 147, you take its leads right off of the speaker terminal, so it's a speaker level output. That's what you need to drive this preamp. It has to be hot, hot. It's an amplified. It's not a preamp signal. It's a signal that comes after the power amps at the speaker terminal. And finally, when I plugged this in, the way that I tested it was to plug my PA system in, have it playing a CD, and then I went over to one of my PA speakers, which has got parallel jacks on it, and took the output of one of the PA speakers to go to another speaker and plug the Leslie in, and sure enough it would drive these because it needs a speaker level output. So anyway, you have two choices. The Leslie 110750 for organs, and the more rare and rather difficult to find so that you can use it with your Rhodes, the 112670. So here this had an open ground. So the little preamp board that was mounted in this metal box has a ground on it, a clamp. And there's a screw that's got to go through the chassis of this heavy-duty metal thing that will ground the PCB board to the casing of the preamp. Well, that screw had come loose, so there was an open ground, so that when you plug this into the Leslies, if you touched it, bzz, 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 because it wasn't grounded the way that it should be. So yesterday I took a screw off of the damaged PCB power supply board and the Janus amp, which I'm going to replace, and use that exact screw and nut to ground that. And so now this preamp is working, noise free, no interference. I got those Leslie 60s working. They're turned on, and right now, to demonstrate them, they're plugged into the Suitcase Rhodes in the mono effect sin, which basically the top 1/4 inch jack is directly off the harp. So this is bypassing the preamp that was rebuilt altogether, and this is what this Rhodes sounds like right off of the harp, going into these wonderful Leslie speakers, which I just repaired. That's about the speed that the rotary capacitor inside these Leslies is moving. phase shift and the tremolo is really pronounced in these particular two cabinets. I have another set upstairs that are in my studio that are miking up my Mark II 1981 stage Rhodes, and they sound great. The exact same cabinets with a different preamp, the same preamp. And I'm really elated to have gotten these to work. So that's what they sound like. And of course you can adjust the speed of this tremolo phase shift. So I'm going to turn it up as high as it will go with the pot. With the toggle switch on the slow speed, speeds those rotary potentiometers up that are driven with a motor and the same belt that's on a 122 horn Leslie. It's really pretty. Anyway, now I'm going to turn the effect off. So without the space generator, as Don Leslie called it, here's the flat sound with no phase or tremolo between the two speakers. Just a straight Rhodes. It's amazing how clean and beautiful that sounds. And the two speakers that are in there are at least, man, 75, 80, at least 40 years old, if not older than that. So I guarantee you that I'm going to be keeping these 10-inch 4-ohm speakers. I ordered brand new Jensen mods 10-inch 4-ohm speakers because you figure speakers that are 40 years old are going to be fuzzy and indistinct. But man, these sound freaking great, so I'm going to keep them. I am going to put the mods in whenever I get them. So anyway, that's the Leslies. And so now what I'm going to do is show you what the Suitcase Rhodes sounds like with the restored preamp and the restored Janus amp. So I'm going to turn the Leslie volume down and unplug its preamp from the Rhodes. Quiet, no distortion. And that will turn, because that bypasses the preamp that's built into the Suitcase. So when you plug in to that, it's an on-off jack. It takes the signal off the harp and doesn't send it through to the built-in preamp. So now unplugged, the rebuilt preamp, the Janus preamp, the Avion breakout box is going into, no it's not, is it going into my mixer? No, it's not. It's going into a Yamaha Rev 7 reverb unit, which is stereo. And then the outputs of that are going to the power amp inputs of the Janus. So I'm not using the 5-pin DIN plug to plug into the Janus because it's not repaired yet. I replaced the jack, I replaced the on-off switch in the Janus amp. But what the very last piece of the puzzle is, the power supply board in the Janus seems to be what fails, and it fries the preamp. So the replacement for it is this little deal. So here is the replacement PCB board available from Avion Studios, a whopping 19 bucks. And here's the old PC board that was in the Janus amp, and I clipped the components off. There were capacitors and a couple of power regulators. Well, it was burnt, right? It didn't work, and it burnt the preamp. So you get your preamp rebuilt, you can't plug it back in with this damaged card. So this is taken out, but that Janus amp boards, the stereo amp, still work without this. So I'm able to plug in and use it. But eventually this needs to be mounted to the original board, and the original board will fit back on into the chassis with the existing mounts. Right, so that will allow you to mount this board, and the hookup is very simple for the new power supply board. It's 2 AC, 120 volts, neutral and positive, that you take right off of your input cord. So the auxiliary plug, or just the cord that comes in with 120, that's all you need is 120. And it tells you on the back which is positive and which is neutral. And then the other pins, there are 3 pins here, and these 3 are going to go to the 5-pin DIN jack, female, on the Janus, and the preamp with its specific 5-pin DIN cable will go out of the preamp, and instead of into the Avion breakout box, which they've got their own connector, will go to the existing 5-pin female DIN in the Janus, which will feed plus 15, negative 15, and signal. So it's pretty straightforward. That's the last piece of the puzzle to restore the Janus amp completely. So enough talk of that. And here now is what the Rhodes Suitcase Janus amp in stereo with tremolo versus the Leslie 60s. Need to turn the power on to the Janus amp. It's on. New rocker switch, brand new, came from either Digikey or K-Sound. The 5-pin female connectors or Studio Craft came from K-Sound. And the power switch may have come from Digikey. Anyway, so here's the suitcase with the Janus preamp and the Janus power amps. Basically, the sound is restored stock. That is the stock Suitcase Rhodes stereo vibrato, they call it, but it's really tremolo. It's really just a varying of the amplitude from one channel, 50-watt channel, to the other. And there's 2 12s in the front, 2 12s in the back. This is one channel, this is the other channel, so it goes back and forth for the player and back and forth for the audience. Now, I have this set at a very slow, low intensity. Which to me doesn't sound real natural. No effect. And then I'm going to take the reverb off. Now I've spent minimal time on the harp of this instrument because it was pretty good to begin with. So I did a rough voicing, taking out some of the fundamental that made it tubby, and it's pretty good, but there's still some unevenness to the volumes of the notes that it needs to be scaled, which means there's some notes that are louder than others. Pretty uneven. That's with the EQ bass is just nominal in between, and the treble is boosted just slightly. Here's the treble all the way up. Here's the treble all the way down. Here's the treble in the middle. So there's no tweeter. Bass in the middle. Bass all the way off. So you get a lot of tonal variation here with these EQ sliders built into the, this is the Janus preamp, not the Peterson. And now briefly, I'm going to go back to the Leslie 60s. So I'm going to turn the Janus amp off. I'm going to plug the Leslie 60s back into the accessory out, which is directly off the harp, and I'm going to turn that volume up on the preamp. And now the difference between the Leslie 60 space generator, which the tremolo is off, and I'm going to turn it up to about 1 o'clock. The throw is a little bit awkward.